Okay, so this is a presentation about who should you use or who should not use a traditional legal recruiter in order to find positions. Lots of attorneys come to BCG each year, and there's a ton of people that should be using a legal recruiter, but there's also people that shouldn't be using a legal recruiter. When you don't qualify to use a legal recruiter, we do have other services that you can use through BCG, whatever was called BCG Premier. And another one that we recommend is using LawCrossing. One of the things that's important to understand about a legal recruiter is legal recruiters get paid by employers to find candidates for them. So in order for an employer to pay us for using a legal recruiter, you typically need to have certain qualifications and certain steps that certain different things about your background that work. I've reached these conclusions because I've been doing this for 25 years. I've tried every possible type of candidate to get jobs for legal recruiters. And out of tens of thousands of candidates we've represented, there's actually a very narrow group of people that we can help get positions through a legal recruiter. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. There are all sorts of recruiters that may try to represent you and take up your time applying to firms, when in reality, you would be much better off applying to firms on your own. And of course, it's not an easy thing for us to recommend you apply to firms on your own, because as recruiters, we make placement fees, and our placement fees could be anywhere from $7,000 or $8,000, which would be a fixed fee for certain firms, all the way to 25% of your annual salary. And in order for them to pay those fees to us, it's very important that you have a certain qualification. So when you come into our company, you will be often rejected and not understand the reasons why. And that's what I'm going to try to talk to you about today. It's nothing to do with the fact that if you were to apply to these same firms on your own, you wouldn't get a job. But when you're coming through a recruiter, the firms generally have certain qualifications and certain things about your background that they look for. And it's a game changer. You have these qualifications because we are able to find firms that wouldn't necessarily hire you unless we found you for them. And they're actually very hungry to hire certain types of candidates. And that is really irrespective of the region of the country you're in. It doesn't matter if you're looking at small towns. It doesn't matter in the major markets. Firms will hire you if you have these qualifications. And in fact, if we do represent you and you have these qualifications, the odds are very good that if you apply to the firms you are recommending, you will be able to get a position, because the types of qualifications that attorneys have that are placeable by recruiters are actually quite rare. There's not a lot of people, for example, that are focused on one practice area, other things that are important for your background. But you do need to have certain qualifications if you're going to work with a recruiter. And again, our cost representing you, which is finding you and having you apply for our website, then reviewing your background, interviewing you, and then introducing you to firms, takes a lot of time, and it costs us a lot of money. It costs us thousands of dollars to apply to these firms, and certainly it's far less than what the recruiter then we would get paid by successfully representing you. So you understand, everybody, we want to work, we want to be able to find firms that you can get positions out. And we're very good at it. If you come in to BCG, we will typically make all sorts of recommendations to you. We'll recommend jobs. We'll recommend firms without jobs. And we work very hard on your behalf. But if you don't have these qualifications, we actually can't help, even though you would be better off. You would be better off and get jobs with the same firms if you were to apply on your own without these stringent criteria. And the reason that law firms have these criteria is because they basically can hire you, know that you can make the money right off the outset. So if you have these qualifications, then law firms are very happy to hire you. They're happy to work with recruiters. And it actually benefits you in a lot of ways. One way that it's very important to understand is that we're able to highlight aspects of your background that it might not look good if you said those things on your own. We can say you won various awards. We can talk about how great you did in your job and your law school. And a lot of that time, if you were to say that on your own, it would look like you were bragging and it might not be well received. Whereas when it comes to a recruiter, it actually is well received. And also, law firms know that we're putting our effort behind you and trying to get your position, that we've already done the screening. We believe that you're a good candidate for those firms. We obviously have a very big brand in this space, and law firms trust us to make different sorts of recommendations to hire you. And it's actually a lot of fun for us. Law firms all the questions, we'll answer them. We will be able to do a lot of work that they wouldn't have to do on their own in terms of getting questions answered, in terms of understanding your background and asking lots and lots of questions. They may ask about salary, they may ask about how you did in your last job, they may ask about why you're looking, they may ask all these questions that they would have to ask you in an in-person meeting that would take them quite a bit of time to get those answers. So we're able to do that for you. We're also able to put our credibility behind these applications. Applications that come through BCG are more likely to get attention and be reviewed because they know that there's a screening process that happens. So what I'm going to talk about right now is things that are important for a firm when they're reviewing their background. And if you have these qualifications, you are marketable by a recruiter. Now, you may not get the first 10 jobs you apply to or the first 20 jobs you apply to, but we will give a candidate of ours lots of different places to apply to. And honestly, when you have these qualifications, if you're able to apply to enough places, you always get traction and always get interviews. And so this is what we're looking for. This is what makes a BCG candidate unique. And these are things that we have learned over 25 years, that if you have these qualifications, you're likely to get hired. So the first thing that law firms look at is you're currently working in a law firm or not. And it's very important to law firms that be employed full-time, meaning that you're not as a contract attorney, you're not a staff attorney, you're not doing piecemeal work, you're working full-time in a law firm as an associate, counsel, or a partner. Other titles you may have, contract attorney, staff attorney, things that don't connote some level of permanence in the law firm aren't well regarded. Associates are obviously there with a hope that they'll make partner, and they're treated that way by firms. There's pressure that they're under to bill a certain number of hours, and it's just a different role than someone with another title. They also are, you're okay with being counsel. If you're counsel with a firm, it still connotes some level of permanence. And then if you're a partner, of course, that also a lot of permanence. When a law firm's reviewing you, they aren't going to be interested through a recruiter of someone who's a contractor. The reason that is not a permanent type role. You have not been hired by the firm to work with its clients. You're not typically, as a contract attorney, you're not given the most important work. Associates are. It's the same thing with staff attorneys. Staff attorneys are not associates, and that role is not something that's permanent. It's something that is temporary in nature, or does not involve having to bill a certain number of hours. They are really only interested in people that are associates, counsels, or partners. If we submit you as a contract attorney, they may be interested in you, but they're not going to be someone that pays us the fees for hiring you, which typically is 25% of your annual salary. They're just not going to do it. The same thing with a staff attorney. They want someone that's in a permanent type role in a law firm that either is at the highest level, which would be a partner, or an associate who is expected to work hard with the expectation of becoming a counsel or a partner in developing those sorts of skills. The other thing that's very important, it's not always the case, but in most cases, if you've been laid off or you're fired or quit your job, you also are marketable by a recruiter. The reason that a laid off attorney is often not marketable to a law firm through a recruiter is because the same law firm is going to get applications from people that are in permanent roles as associates, counsel, or partners. So a laid off attorney is someone that's currently not working. Now, lots of attorneys get laid off. It's unfortunate when it happens. It happens to good attorneys. But the problem with being laid off is if you're laid off, the firm typically will not lay off its best people. It will keep its best attorneys around and lay off ones that, for whatever reason, it doesn't want. Attorneys laid off, they often will be ones that don't have the highest hours. They may be ones that the law firm doesn't want to keep around for whatever reason, and is using slowing revenues as a reason to lay them off. It just doesn't help you to use a recruiter because you're not employed full time, and there could be risk associated with hiring you. Those risks are that you may have been laid off because you did bad work. You may have lower hours. You may not have been the best person in your class or the best associate. The best attorneys typically in law firms' experience are not laid off. And it's unfortunate, but something that often will speak to how much the law firm liked you and how much value you were providing at your last firm. And what does that mean? Law firms do not lay off people that are profitable and that they're making money from. If the work slows down, they keep the best people that have billed off in the highest hours, that they like the most, and just being laid off is very difficult. There's certain markets, like New York City, where a laid off attorney often has a next to impossible time getting a position. We've seen this numerous times. Laid off attorneys, even ones laid off from the best firms, often just have no luck in New York. The reason for that is anytime you go into a market like New York or Washington, D.C., or Chicago and other markets where there's a lot of attorneys, the law firm will get multiple applications for each job that they have. And if you're a laid off attorney, then obviously they have choices. So they're going to choose the employed attorney over the laid off attorney every time. And I can tell you that in my 25 years of experience, for some markets like New York or Los Angeles or San Francisco, once someone is laid off, the doors just pretty much close. And I think that's unfortunate. It doesn't mean that you're not employable in other markets. Laid off attorneys can often get positions in smaller markets where there's not a lot of people like them. So for example, if you are a very strong corporate M&A attorney and you're laid off in New York, you could probably start getting interviews in upstate New York and other parts of the country, sometimes smaller firms in New York. But in general, anytime that you're being compared to people that may currently be working, there's no competition. And so law firms will not be interested. I've seen so many examples. I've had instances where I had one yesterday where a law firm reviewed the person's resume and didn't realize they were laid off. And then the second they realized that, they canceled the interview. It just happens all the time. I had another candidate that was laid off from a large law firm in New York, and he showed up to one interview, and it was going to be a full day of interviews. First person whose office he walked into saw he was laid off and canceled all the interviews. So it's a very difficult thing to work with a recruiter when you're laid off. And again, it doesn't mean you can't get positions on your own, but law firms are not going to pay a recruiter for a laid off attorney. The same thing goes with fired attorney. It's no different. If you're fired, obviously, and you're being compared to people that aren't fired, it can be very difficult for you to get a job through a recruiter. And the same thing goes if you quit your job. People say they quit their jobs all the time. They say things like my job because I needed to take care of my family, or I quit my job because I had a health problem, or all these different things. And the question that law firms always ask is, if you quit your job, why would you not go back to the firm? What happened about that for that reason? Sometimes people will say, oh, there was problems at the firm I got laid off from. But often these are multinational firms and that have been around for 100 years or more, and finding fault with these firms is just ludicrous because they've been around for so long. You can't make a generalization about a giant AmLaw 100 law firm is going to go out of business or something, and that's why you quit. So we have to be very careful about it. The next thing that law firms always look at, take very seriously, is if you're working in-house. In-house attorneys are not a law firm. An in-house attorney is someone that has quit working in a law firm or never worked in a law firm. That's just not compatible with a law firm hiring someone through a recruiter. The reason for that is because once you choose to go in-house, you've chosen to leave the law firm environment, and you'll probably choose to do so again. People that go in-house are often not happy in law firms, and that's why they leave in-house. And so why would a law firm take a chance on you when they can hire people that are currently in law firms? It makes no sense. In addition, the job of working in a law firm is much different than working in-house, because when you're working in-house, you're working with executives there and giving advice to them, or you're getting work and giving it to other people at other law firms outside. And most in-house attorneys give their most sophisticated work to the law firm. So you're actually not often doing the work, and some law firms know that. In addition, if you're coming from another law firm, they have a basic idea of the kind of work you're doing. If you're coming from an in-house law firm, in-house jobs can be all over. You're doing different things, and there's no kind of quality metrics for what it's like in in-house apartments and departments. They have no idea the type of work. Other things people do is they will often go into the government, and unless you're going to the government at a very high level and you have a lot of law firm experience, law firms, again, aren't going to be interested in you because you're not doing the same sort of work that you would do in a law firm. Many government, if not most of them, physicians, people work normal hours, work from 9 to 5. The work is not as demanding, and it's just a different role than it is working in a law firm. All of these roles, working in-house or working for the government, you're not working for paying clients. Paying clients inside of a law firm only pay if they're getting good work or certain types of work. And in-house and government, there's no controls. The clients of the in-house government and the government are not going to, they're not going to have to pay for the work if it's not a certain level of quality. The hours are typically not the same as working in a law firm. So if you decide to work in-house or at the government, they're just not going to be interested. Same thing that goes with other non-law firm roles. For example, sometimes people will go into academia and teach law school. And again, it's the same thing. You're sitting around talking about theoretical ideas and teaching one practice area type of course. And again, that has nothing to do with working in a law firm. The demands are far different. You may teach 3 hours or 4 hours a week, and then the rest of the time you're able to sit around and write law review articles, and you're not having to document your time, and just not something that law firms are interested in. They're very, very good work. And it can work. There are certain in-house roles, for example, if you were like an ERISA attorney working in an accounting firm, getting rare experience, it might work. But in my experience, over 25 years of doing this, I've seen it happen to people get jobs from coming in these different roles, hardly ever. Some examples that I think that are quite interesting. I've seen people that have been at big firms like Wilson Sonsini and things, and they might have been there for 7 or 8 years, and they might have gone to Stanford Law School and done really well there and have these amazing law firm backgrounds. But then they go in-house and they go in there for a year, and they say they want to go back. And there's just crickets from all the law firms we try to apply them to. They're not willing to take the risk, because the law firm that has an opening, for example, for an 8-year corporate C attorney or venture capital or private equity attorney, it's just not going to be interested in someone from in-house when they can hire people that are not from in-house, and that are committed to working in a law firm. And when people leave to go in-house or these other positions, they're typically doing so because they're unhappy in a law firm. So why would a law firm be interested in hiring them again? It just makes no sense. And so these are people that are contracted or hired, working in different practice settings, are just not the law firms that aren't interested in them. Law firms are interested in people that are coming from law firms, and law firms are similar practice environments. It's not the same job working in-house with the government or in academia or public interest and all these different types of positions that than it is to work in a law firm. Law firms want to hire people coming from law firms, and they will not pay recruiters for that. There might be some rare exceptions, but again, in 25 years, I really cannot remember this ever happening. You can get hired often as though you're coming from a judicial clerkship, but even there, the law firms want to see you having worked in a law firm prior to a judicial clerkship. Coming directly out of a clerkship, very rarely someone at a law firm hired through BCG. And also, another thing to consider is you can get hired coming out of a clerkship, but a lot of people that go into clerkships don't even have work as a summer associate prior to trying to get in a clerkship and trying to apply for positions there. But those same attorneys will often be able to get jobs if they apply to law firms on their own. The next thing that we look for at BCG, and is actually one of the most important criteria, is whether or not the person's stable practice area. This is absolutely crucial. Law firms require candidates to be in a stable practice area in order to hire them for BCG, and again, extremely important. The thing that's nice about being in a stable practice area, and again, it doesn't matter what your practice area is. I just got off the phone with a personal injury attorney that got an interview, and you can be in insurance defense, you can be in corporate, you can be in patent. It doesn't really matter what that practice area is. But law firms only want to invest in people that have a consistent experience in one practice area. So sometimes people will do things like they will start off as a commercial litigation attorney, then they may move and do some corporate, and they may move and do some environmental work. And those people just are not marketable. People want us, from law firms, when they're hiring you, they want to see that you are in one practice area and you are committed to it and not doing a lot of other things. They're hiring you through a recruiter because you have that stability in your practice area. They're definitely willing to invest in that. And if they hire you, I want you to get a picture of why this is important. Say you graduated from law school, and this is just a hypothetical. There were 100 people in your class, and out of those 100, maybe 20 went and did something that wasn't involving the law firm, or 30, whatever the number is. And then they all started work, and say 10 of them started work as a corporate attorney, and then 5 years, there was only one person still a corporate attorney. So the longer you're in a practice area, the rarer your skills become, and the more the firm's likely to be interested in you, because most people will not stick with a law firm or stick with a practice area. So if you stick with a practice area, there's just very few people. Like, doesn't matter what your practice area is. It could be workers' compensation, it could be environmental law, but over time, there's more and more people drop out. There's going to be fewer and fewer. You take a market, for example, Fort Worth, Texas, and say they're looking for someone to do, I don't know, ERISA work. And when you graduated from law school, there were only one or two people that did ERISA. And then the same thing goes for all the other attorneys that joined in Fort Worth, Texas. At the end of 5 or 6 years, there might only be 2 of you, but you become very marketable. Law firms want people that are committed to one practice area. The other thing that happens is it generally takes about 5 years for most attorneys to be competent in a practice area, meaning you have to sit down and do that practice area for 5 years. There's this 10,000 hour rule from Malcolm Gladwell that it takes something like that. So they expect you to have that commitment to your practice area. One thing that a lot of recruiters do, that are candidates that end up getting rejected by BCG, is they think there's a lot of value in adding all this different type of work that they may have done on their resumes. So they may say, I did corporate related work, and then I also did some trademark work, and then I was involved in some real estate transactions. And those sorts of people are absolutely not marketable. If you want to be marketable through a recruiter, more marketable as a candidate, you really need to make sure that your resume shows a lot of focus on your practice area. The more focus you have, the longer you've done something, the more value you can offer the firm. and there's not a lot of people like you. Law firms are hired by clients typically to do one thing. They're not hired to have attorneys do 5 different things. And this is just an extremely important point. You learn more over time, that you become more valuable over time, and that commitment shows that you're not likely to bounce around and do other types of things. So any candidate we have at BCG, we actually often will go in and change their practice area to look more focused, because they may choose a bunch of different things that you really need to have one practice area, because that's the only that offers value to the law firm. One example that I like to give a lot of times is, for example, imagine you had some serious problem like a brain tumor. You would not go to a doctor that said they did brain tumors, orthopedic work, studying bone, and also were interested in psychiatry. I mean, that would be insane. Not want to hire that sort of client in the same way. Only want to hire people that are stable in doing one thing, because they want them to be experts in that practice area. The longer you do that practice area, the more confident your life will become. And not only that, it shows that you're focused and interested in something, as opposed to trying to do a bunch of different things. And lots of attorneys think that it's important to get experience doing all these different things. It's going to make them more marketable, but it's absolutely not true. Not be doing multiple things. You need to be concentrating on one thing in order to be marketable by a legal recruiter. And even if you're not able to work with us as a legal candidate, I highly recommend that you focus your resume on that and make sure that it's focused. One of the things that's should not be obvious, but I bring this point up because every year different law schools churn out, I don't even know how many, but they hook up, all these attorneys come over with these LLMs and pay $100,000 or more and think they're going to get jobs in the US. Law firms are not interested in attorneys that aren't U.S. citizens, and don't hold up a JD from a U.S. law school. One of the reasons for that is, even if they were to hire them, there's a big risk that they leave because of from other countries. So you simply, and they want to go home. So it just doesn't any form of stability, and law firms don't want to have to do the paperwork and things in order to employ you. Why would they, when they can hire people from the United States that are likely to, and aren't going to require them to do all this visa work and so forth. It's just not something that they're interested in. A lot of times people will put all these different states and things on the resume that they may be interested in. So someone in Texas may say they're interested in New York or Washington, D.C. or Florida. And as a general rule, you need to be admitted to the state where you want to work or eligible to transfer or training. Law firms have no incentive to hire people from out of state that can't get into the bar quickly. It's not worth the risk. Why would you hire someone if you were a law firm in Florida where everyone has to take the bar to work there? Why would you hire someone from out of state where they could fail the bar if they're not admitted? It's just, why would you bring them across the country to work there if they don't have the bar exam? Work there and not pass. You need to have the bar in a state where you want to work. Certain states, you can be practicing for a certain number of years and work. But if you don't have those qualifications, then it's just not something that you can't wait that the law firms are interested in. Almost impossible, not impossible, but extremely difficult, for example, to move to California and join a law firm there if you're not into the bar. Try it. There are some firms that will hire you if the market is on fire. Sometimes corporate work is on fire and there's not enough attorneys, and they'll bring them in and study with other attorneys or bring them to the bar, but it's just very rarely happens. The same thing goes to Florida and a lot of other states. So if you're trying to work in a certain state, then BCG is going to be able to help. There's also another category, people that failed the bar, that failed it twice or whatever and lost their jobs. And those people can't be placed. You can't be placed through a recruiter if you don't have the bar. It's just not going to happen. And in some law firm, they want to take a risk on you if you're very strong or something for some reason, but it's usually not a good use of the law firm's resources, because most jobs that any law firm has will get multiple applications. And why would they hire someone for a position if that attorney doesn't have the bar exam? It doesn't make any sense for them, because they can hire attorneys with the bar exam without that risk. The risk is huge. The law firm may have to pay to move you somewhere. Then the law firm will have to pay you often while you study. And then if you go to certain states like California, I don't know what the experienced attorney pass rate is, but sometimes it's been as low as 20%. And so it's just not worth the law firm's effort. The next thing that's very important to understand when you work with a recruiter is the experience level that you have. So attorneys are generally placeable when they have about 1 to 7 years of experience working in a law firm. The sweet spot for hiring attorneys is typically, your recruiter is typically between 3 and 6 years of experience. The reason for that is a third-year associate is typically has a good idea of how to do things. They can be assigned work, and there's not a lot of hand-holding that's necessary for the attorney. They're trained, and usually they're coming from a similar law firm with that level of experience that they can be given work. And also, those attorneys do not expect to be partner. So they're going to start, attorney with 3 or 4 years experience is going to start at the firm and work extremely hard to get ahead. And that's what they want. Once an attorney has more than 7 years of experience, they're typically not a partner where they're at, or they look like they're not going to be a partner. And they may have a little bit of sour grapes. They may not be willing to work as hard. And also they're joining a firm where there's probably going to be other 7 or 8 year associates that are very close to making partner and working very hard for that. And throwing them in the mix is often something that the law firm doesn't want to do. There's one other additional issue when an attorney has more than 7 or 8 years of experience, and that's their billing rate. As an attorney gets more senior, their billing rate gets closer and closer to what a partner would charge. So clients are much more interested in hiring partners to do the work and having partners do the work than they would be a senior associate whose rate is the same. Obviously, a partner has more experience, they've been more proven, would have relationships with clients. And so bringing in someone who's senior is something that not only is detrimental to the morale of people that are in the firm, but that person is probably not partnership material at the last firm. So why would a firm take a chance on someone that wasn't partnership material at their last firm? And additionally, as the billing rates get closer to partners, which happens as attorneys get more and more senior, partners will often prefer to do the work, because partners, if a billing rate of a senior associate, just hypothetically, is $1,000 an hour, and partners only $1,200. The partners often make money based on the hours also. The partners are going to want to bill those hours instead of giving them away to a senior associate. And not only that, but the partners are often compensated a percentage of the work they do and a much lower percentage for the work that other people do. Senior associates are just very difficult for them to get jobs inside of law firms, and most law firms are not going to be interested in that. Now, that doesn't mean all law firms are. It's typically the law firms that do work for corporations and have larger clients that are least interested in them. There are certainly firms, personal injury, insurance defense, and other practice areas that will be interested in attorneys with more than that level of experience. But as a general rule, it's, once you get beyond 7 or 8 years of experience, it becomes very hard to get jobs in a law firm. And another thing that should be quite obvious, but I just bringing this up, is when attorneys get very senior, especially at New York firms and they have, say, 7 years or 8 years of experience, because there's not a lot of opportunities for them, they will end up going in-house and like that. Very difficult for senior associates to get positions after a certain length of time. Not unheard of. We certainly work with a lot of people like that, but it's not easy. And because there's a lot of issues with senior associate, and instead of hiring a senior associate, it's often better to hire a mid-level associate. Another quick note about mid-level associates and why they're so marketable. Mid-level associates billing rates are very high, so compared to a senior associate. So it looks better for the law firm to be giving work to someone whose billing rate is much lower, because they can give bills to clients instead of something that looks like $1,400 an hour. It might be $600 or whatever. And I'm like, partner, these are just problem numbers. And so clients like it much better when those sorts of partnering associates are giving them, when they're giving the level associate's position. And this is just very good. And then one other thing I want to quickly is that when an attorney has less than 1 year experience, there's just no way that the law firm are interested. But the candidate doesn't have any training. So 1 year training isn't the same as having 3 years. So they're just getting their bearings and looking for a position. And that's not something that really is marketable. Now, attorneys with 1 or 2 years of experience certainly are marketable and can get positions if they have very strong backgrounds. But then, of course, the law firm that's interviewing them is always going to have questions about, why is someone so junior looking for positions? And in reality, junior associates, when they're looking for positions, are often doing so because they don't like the pressure of being trained. They feel they take it personally when their work is aggressively critiqued, which needs to happen for all junior associates, or they're just unhappy and not yet able to be part of a law firm and what it takes. So that moving with very little experience is not marketable. The most marketable people are going to be ones that have enough training and that are able to pick up work and do it the law. This is kind of important here. So a lot of people do have more than 7 years of experience. Of course, the majority of all attorneys in the United States have more than 7 years of experience. So that doesn't mean that we're not interested ever in working with attorneys with more than 7 years of experience. And in fact, the majority of our candidates have more than 7 years. But there's certain things that are important for an attorney once they start having more than 7 years. The most important thing, something most attorneys never achieve, is having significant portable business. And if someone wants to make $200,000 a year, then most firms are going to want them to have, which should be 3 to 4 times their expected salary. So $200,000 a year would mean you might have $600,000 experience or $800,000 of business. And so portable business is very important. And portable business, by the way, is the most important long-term thing for an attorney to try to develop. Now, the majority of attorneys don't have portable business, but the ones that do have portable business get incredible levels of interest from law firms. Law firms are very interested in them. Most attorneys, once they get 500,000 to a million or whatever business or 2 or 3, these attorneys will get interviewed all day. They will get interviewed. Firms that don't have they will get interviews just all over wherever they're trying to work, because law firms only function when there's people that are able to bring in business and have that ability. So regardless of your status or where you are in your career, having that portable business and learning how to generate it makes you incredibly marketable. An attorney with 100,000 or 800 or a million gets interviews all day. They just, maybe not at the largest firm, but they get them all day. And the larger firms, they get incredible numbers. They have a bigger book, 2 million, so forth. So that should be your goal. So we can work with any firm with more than 7 years of experience in this business. Now, most attorneys don't have this, and the majority of our candidates at BCG actually do have a lot of experience, often 7 years of experience. But people that have more than 7 years of experience and don't have business, need to be very specialized, meaning they have to be doing something, some sort of practice area that they have been doing most of their career. Then that has to be very focused. It has to be something that not a lot of people have. And again, if you have 100 people graduate from law school and maybe 10 people go into insurance defense, after 7 or 8 years, out of those 10, there might only be 2 still doing it. And so there's not a lot of people that have the level of specialization. And law firms are interested in attorneys with specialization with more than 7 years of experience. But there's something you need to realize with that. And what that is that whoever the law firm is that's hiring you, they need to have a lot of partners there, need to have a lot of extra work to do for senior people. And if that's the case, then they will hire you. Now, there are, again, some niche practice areas, trust and estate, different things where if you have that experience, you're extremely marketable. But you do need to be very focused, have more than 7 years of experience. The idea of all these criteria is that regardless of whether or not you work with a recruiter, you need to understand that law firms are going to always view you in these ways, and they're always applying these criteria, regardless of sometimes they don't even understand it. But these criteria are what almost all law firms do, very few that don't, that in your career. So if you're able to meet these criteria, then you can pretty much work with any recruiter, you're marketable. But if you don't, then most of the time that this is not going to be a good use of your time. You should try something else. You should use a service like BCG Premier that will help you apply to firms your own resume and cover letter as opposed to BCG represent you, because law firms aren't going to be interested in you paying what could amount tens of thousands of dollars for this introduction if you don't have those criteria. And finally, having these criteria is what makes a good law firm attorney. A good law firm attorney has focus. A good law firm attorney, very specialized. A good law firm attorney stays employed in a law firm. A good law firm attorney has U.S. citizenship. A good law firm attorney commits their practice area. A good law firm attorney doesn't go in-house and do other things. They're law firm attorneys. And so this is really what you need. And if you do these things on your own, then you can accomplish this on your own without looking at a recruiter. You're going to be just in very